What's up, Wizards? Dev from that channel, back again with another one of these deck techs. I've been having so much fun doing these. And another budget deck tech today, which is honestly like some of the most fun I have making these videos is with budget deck techs. This one probably should have come out a couple of weeks ago, but you know, whatever. This is a budget black-red dash. A lot of people have a lot of interest in dash. It's a really fun mechanic. People that like to swing their cards sideways and deal damage really like this mechanic. I'm one of them. So yeah, I don't see any reason not to do this. A lot of budget cards involved in dash, and it's a pretty solid deck, all things considered. So go ahead, hit it. Well, we're playing 28 creatures in this thing, which is a lot of creatures. And some of the best cards in Standard are honestly in this budget black-red deck, and Lightning Berserker is one of them. There's 3 copies of Lightning in this deck, and yeah, I've said it before, in development, this card was known as Fireball, you know, except that you can cast it over and over and over and over. So Lightning Berserker, I think, is good against a lot of different stuff, especially control, obviously. Esper Dragons is a thing, and if you can resolve this spell, she's really good, it turns out. Can't be Disdainful Stroked. There's lots of good things about Lightning Berserker, and yeah, play that. She's cheap. She's a good card player. 3 copies of Zurgo, Bell Striker Edition. He's probably the most expensive card in the deck and the biggest, you know, the most flexible slot. There's other things you can do, but honestly, a 1-mana 2/2 is really good, time-tested, and fits in with our dash, you know, flavor-wise, but honestly, I'm not that concerned about the flavor and the dash in this thing. It's mostly just because he's a 1-mana 2/2, and that's, you know, really stupid good. So I play Zurgo all day. I don't care how much crap he takes. Zurgo's so good. Play him. To finish off the 1-drops here, we got 2 copies of Foundry Street Denizen. This thing is hilarious. Foundry Street has something like 23 red creatures that activate its, you know, its +1/+0 ability, and they keep coming back in and out of play, you know, every turn if you're dashing them in. So Foundry Street is pretty cool. You can get, you know, +2/+0 almost every turn, you know, a lot of the time, you know. Foundry Street is already, you know, people know that this guy's good. This is another one of those cards we see popping up an awful lot in the token builds and the mono red aggro, and yeah, he totally goes here too for a lot of the same reasons. We're not playing Dragon Fodder, we're not playing Hordling Outburst, but we still do have lots of creatures that come in and out constantly. Speaking of good cards in Standard, again, this is 4 copies of Mardu Scout, one of the better creatures with dash, just super efficient. You know, resilient to removal, haste on, you know, 3-power haste on turn 2 is just good. That's fantastic. Does a lot of damage over the course of the game for you. And yeah, Mardu Scout. I mean, it's a dash deck, and he's in lots of mono red stuff that's not even like, you know, thematically dash or budget oriented or anything. Like, he's a really good card, and we gotta play him because he's like 10 cents, and he's just crazy and puts a lot of pressure on opponents. Well, of course, that's going to be the core of the 1 and 2 drops. I mean, in any red deck, right? Some red decks. I mean, you probably... No, yeah, most of those cards. All of them, actually. So let's move on to some slightly more interesting stuff in the 3 and 4 slot. This is 3 copies of Mardu Strike Leader. One of the last inclusions, too. And a lot of people are going to be like, this should be one of the first inclusions. But I felt like it was really mana-intensive, and we actually don't have... You know, we've got swamps. That's our only way of producing black mana. I mean, we could say the same thing red. All we have is mountains, but we have far more of them because so many of the cards in the deck are red. So we're not as reliable when it comes to black mana. Obviously, he's a super splash, but just the fact that he costs 4 to dash in, you know, I had reservations. But Mardu Strike Leader has been pretty darn good. I've been, you know, historically kind of low on this card. He didn't make it into my Black-White Warriors deck or anything. But he does pretty good things. He's value. Value is always good. You can tell how much I'm struggling with the inclusion of this card, but I know that a lot of people are fans of it. And it is a generation of value pretty much every time you play it, and that's... turns out is good. Historically, that is an incredibly desirable effect, and he has been good in testing so far. Really hard to deal with 2 creatures hitting the board, you know, virtually at the same time. So I like Strike Leader in this, but if you want to talk about Strike Leader, we'll talk about Strike Leader. I have, you know, I'm very ambivalent when it comes to this card. Here's 3 copies of something that kind of makes the deck tick. This is 3 copies of Ambuscade Shaman. Do I really have to explain? Like, Ambuscade Shaman is sort of a no-brainer. People might be like, why not 4? But I actually think that, again, this is very intensive, honestly. I don't want to spend too much mana playing spells in this deck, you know? I really don't. Because we're going to be dashing in creatures a lot, and that costs us an awful lot of mana. So, Ambuscade Shaman, obviously when we start dashing things in, he's going to be incredibly good, especially when we can dash more than one creature a turn in. But at the same time, with just 3 copies, we will see him as much as we want to. Now, obviously, he's really good in multiples, don't get me wrong, and I won't fault you for playing 4 or even 0, honestly, in your deck. But this card, in a budget build especially, is just an incredible generation of, not value necessarily, but really pressure. A good generation of pressure on the opponent. Ambuscade Shaman can help you go over the top when normally you wouldn't be able to do that. So I'm in favor of this card. Long story short. 3 copies of Warbringer, another card that I wasn't too sure about, you guys. Honestly, I told you why too in the spoilers for DTK. I just feel like 4 mana is a lot to pay for something that reduces cost, because by then, you know, who cares? But it turns out you totally care, because you're going to be dashing creatures in all the time. 5th, 6th, 7th turn, you're still dashing guys in 2 and 3 at a time. Warbringer really facilitates your ability to do that. And honestly, once he's on the board, it becomes so much easier for you to dash multiple creatures. You want to see Warbringer, and I'm not going to eat my words. I won't say that he's incredible or anything, but he definitely helps out the deck that he's supposed to help out a little bit more than I originally anticipated. I'm in favor of Warbringer. Also a good metal band. 4 copies of Goblin Heel Cutter. We see a lot of this thing in Standard too. This is crazy. Honestly, Heel Cutter is a 4 of for a reason. He started off as a 3 of, and then I quickly realized that he's dumb, and you always want to see him, you always want to play this card. Heel Cutter really helps you get damage through, and he's, you know, a 3-power guy in his own right, so he's a threat. Yeah, I feel like there's no reason to go on a long-winded thing. I think we all know that Heel Cutter's good by now. He's sort of passed the standard test in a lot of ways, like Mardu Scout has. And yeah, people now play this instead of Frenzied Goblin, which there's a whole conversation there, honestly, but he is as good as people say he is. Heel Cutter is crazy. He comes down and you do all the damage that combat step a lot of the time. Heel Cutter's good. Play this guy. Well, we got 3 5-drops in the deck, which is a lot of 5-drops. But in any case, 2 copies of Boltwing Marauder here for super obvious reasons. This is another copy of Ambuscade in a lot of ways, except, you know, a much bigger threat and flies and takes out opposing dragons. He's got really desirable PT for blocking other dragons or attacking into other dragons even. So yeah, which is an important thing in this standard meta right now. So I support Boltwing Marauder in exactly this and probably nothing else, but he's good. He's good. Once you start dashing in 2 and 3 guys, man, like, and this has happened multiple times. Ambuscade, Boltwing Marauder, and you just start crushing. I mean, it's just crazy. Everything getting +4/+4 is just, it's unbeatable in a lot of ways. And finally, 1 copy of Kolaghan the Storm's Fury. Started off as 2, but I wanted to play 1 more land, and I felt like God, don't get on me for that. I felt like the 1 more land was actually more important than just having this guy again, because he does wind up dead in your hand sometimes. He's not as good as you want him to be for his mana cost in this deck. I honestly feel like Marauder is just as good in a lot of ways. I always want to see Marauder more than this card, because this will only really ever give you a 1, maybe 2 if you've got a Marauder out bonus on attacks, and at that point it's just sort of win more, you know. So I always want to see Marauder more. On to the 8 spells in this deck. We're playing 2 copies of Wild Slash, along with 4 copies of Lightning Strike. This is our burn suit here. Wild Slash obviously helps us get a little extra damage in its control, but its main function is mostly to kill other creatures that we're playing against with aggro. And yeah, that's what Wild Slash has always been for. Lightning Strike, we can really go over the top, help deal that extra 3 damage that we need to deal to get in the end of the game, and kills a lot of the stuff that we really want to kill in the format right now. There are some problem creatures, obviously. And to round out the spells, 2 copies of Outpost Siege. Outpost Siege is retarded. I'm sorry to use that word for anybody that's offended by it, but it's retarded. Yeah, your creature's going to be leaving play every turn. Like I said, a couple of times, you'll be dashing in 2 and 3 guys that are virtually removal proof, you know. It's hard for them to anger the gods or end hostilities or Crux of Fate because your guys won't be out. They have to use instant speed removal on your dudes. Even then, you still got dudes popping back to your hand. So Outpost Siege really helps out, you know. Like I've been saying with the 2 burn spells, helps you get that extra last few damage that you need. And I'm not even going into, you know, the other ability on it, which is also pretty good if you're playing this more the mid-range end. You want to get your 5 drops out and go from there. There's so many things you can do with Outpost Siege. I would not mind upping the copies of this card. Outpost Siege is cray-cray. Like, totally off the wall. You can deal 2-3 extra damage a turn with this card. It's, you know, people want to probably just be like, well, you're just playing impact trimmers, you know, which I actually considered for this deck. But Outpost Siege, so flex, so malleable. You can do so many things with this. If you're not feeling that second ability at the time, don't have a grip of dash dudes, that's fine. Just draw an extra card every turn, and you can dash it out. So yeah, good. Outpost Siege is dumb. I mean, but we all know that by now. But this is a very, very budget build of a deck. Honestly, if I'm counting right here, it takes far less than $20 to build this deck. I mean, you can go up to F&M for, you know, 10, 15 bucks. I mean, if you want to switch out the Zergos with something, then this deck will cost you like $6, $7 to make. So yeah, at least try it out. It's really consistent for what it is. And cards like Lightning Berserker and Heel Cutter, they just circumvent a lot of the problem decks and problem cards in the format that hurt aggro out a lot. And we are, like I said, very resilient to mass removal, which is a huge thing right now because we're playing against a lot of Crux of Fates, Perilous Vaults, and Anger of the Gods, and we can just laugh at those cards with this deck. So yeah, I think it's worth the 10, 12 bucks that it'll cost you to make this deck on TCG Player. So I highly recommend it. I love doing budget decks, and this one is particularly strong and will in no way break the bank. It's either buy lunch or get this deck. So don't starve or anything, but it's not going to kill you. Well, that's all for this deck. I think that this is actually, like I said, really good. I just went into a bunch of specifics, so I'm not going to do it here. Just like, share, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this content. And next time, what are we doing? Now, first of all, I want to address Tristan Wolf. He's, you know, he's a long-time subscriber. We've only been around for like 3.5 months, but you've been subscribed for a while, man, and I appreciate that. You said the other day, why haven't you done blue-white control yet, man? I mean, you didn't, not in those words, but it was like, you should do that blue-white control you were telling us about, and we're going to totally do it. It's going to be our next deck tech. I had been talking about doing Naya Dragons or Esper Dragons. I've got both of those ready too, but because you asked, I feel I owe it to you. Let's do blue-white control next, and it actually is a really good deck. So stay tuned for that. And remember, Magic Origins, the pre-release is on July 11th, which means sometime in the next 3 weeks to a month, we'll start getting spoilers. And spoiler season's my favorite time of the year. You know, Christmas comes 4 times a year if you play Magic. So definitely stick around for that. I love doing spoiler videos. It's the best thing ever. So yeah, subscribe to our channel. Thanks, everybody. I'm Dev from MtG. That's Strictly Better MTG. We'll see you guys with another deck tech or some news or some something next time. Thanks for joining us.